Well, hello there. Thank you very much for tuning in to Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cooke, and we've got a lot packed into this one episode this week. Our feature interview is with Rodger Cuzner. Many of you may remember him as the 19-year Member of Parliament for Cape Breton-Canso, but he started a new job this week, and it's taking him to some unusual and interesting places. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later on, and we'll take a look at some of the stories that popped up at the most recent meeting of Richmond Municipal Council at the Municipal Building in Arishat. We're going to start things off with a new feature here on Telile 24/7. I wonder if many of you know what a scrum is. Well, basically, that's what happens after a public event when reporters get together and ask questions of someone who was central to that event. And it's called a scrum, and we use the footage from the scrums to help put our stories together, whether it's for radio, television, newspapers, podcasts, or anything else. So I'm introducing a new feature this week called From the Scrum, where you're going to get to hear the newsmakers speaking as they think about the issues that they've just gone over. And we're going to begin our From the Scrum feature with Amanda Mumberket. She's the newly chosen warden of Richmond County, and she's going to talk a little bit about affordable housing in Richmond County, and specifically the possibility of a new affordable housing development in Arishat. There was a possibility for affordable housing just a couple of years ago in Arishat. Developer Telile brought forward an idea that would have seen 24 housing units set up on a property in Arishat. However, petitions and complaints from nearby homeowners and business owners scuttled the project, and council wound up voting 3-2 to not allow the project to go forward, with former warden Brian Marchand casting the deciding tie-breaking vote. Leung packed up his business and decided that he wasn't going to pursue affordable housing options in Richmond County anymore. However, a recent request for Richmond Municipal Council to provide a cost estimate for a water and sewer extension to a property in Arishat led to some hopeful discussion that this property could be turned into an affordable housing development for Almadam. Deputy Warden and District 2 Councillor Michael Dignan said he had optimism that this development and this discussion were happening so early in the new council's term. And here's Warden Amanda Mumberket to talk about what she feels about the request for a cost estimate for water and sewer extensions and how that could eventually lead to affordable housing in Almadam with this particular development.
Affordable housing is definitely something we heard about from knocking on doors, from working with the Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition. I mean, there's no question there is a huge need. I think we're all probably dealing with constituent issues right now, where people are, their housing is at risk right now for a variety of reasons, because they've lost employment, because there's some renovations or whatever the case may be going on during this time. And so it's become such a critical issue in rural communities. It's very exciting to see a project like this hit our agenda so early on in our mandate. I mean, it's lots of homework to be done to find out about the feasibility and all of that, and we'd love to, I think, hear from the proponent in the very near future to talk about the bigger picture of the project and what it all looks like. But in the meantime, right now, it'll be good for us to kind of get a report from staff to see what that kind of water sewer extension might cost in terms of an investment, and start to really investigate what the possibilities are there. But how exciting to see that come on the agenda so early in our term.
November just wrapped up, and when many of us think of November, we think of our veterans, we think of our soldiers, we think of our fallen. We remember. Legion branches across the Strait area and across Canada held Remembrance Day services even in the time of COVID-19. And these socially distant, very respectful times were mostly quiet and peaceful. But a district councillor for Richmond County brought forward concerns at the most recent council meeting that the ceremony that took place at Royal Canadian Legion Branch 150 in Arishat wasn't quite as quiet as he would have liked to see. So, both he and the municipality are going to investigate how these services can be kept quiet to honor the fallen.
I think we can all agree that this year has been a tough year for everyone. And just recently, the Remembrance Day ceremonies were affected all over our region. For me, I had the opportunity to visit the Branch 150 ceremony in Arishat. And of course, because of social distancing, there were ceremonies at the cemetery, there were ceremonies at Thibault Properties, there were ceremonies at the Legion, so everybody was spread out all over this community and all over the county. But having said that, most times a lot of people are in the parking lot at the Legion in Arishat, and while the ceremony was taking place, we had a couple of ATV riders pass during the ceremony. Had a couple of vehicles with some music on. So I found it very discouraging. And I went to talk to the Legion members afterwards, after the ceremony was over. I went to talk to them and just discuss the possibility of maybe closing the road on each side during that 15-20 minute period. Which in Arishat would be very easily done. We could send a letter to the fire department, the chief, and get him to close down the road in Cape Hogan, so people leaving Cape Hogan could venture off towards Arishat, and then also close the road off towards the I road in Arishat, Petitgrel. There's only a couple of houses there, so that would be very easily done, and it would help. And not interrupt these very important ceremonies, in my opinion, right? So, not only Arishat, I think if and where it can be done all over our county, it's something we should look into for sure, right?
Yeah, certainly the noise of traffic was a factor in St. Peter's as well, and less so in River Bourgeois, but still, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, just getting in touch with the RCMP, with firefighters, our volunteer fire department, to close the roads for 15-20 minutes so there's no interruptions to these ceremonies, I think would be a great thing to look into, right? So just want to bring that up. So hopefully we can discuss that and maybe put a policy in place in the future.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps we could ask you, Sean, to connect with our CMP advisory board and let us know an update on that kind of going forward. So
I think the proper people that we'd have to contact would be Department of Transportation. We likely need to get permission from them as those roads are under their care and control. So perhaps staff could check into that as opposed to checking with the RCMP. I think they would, if we contacted them, I think they'd refer us to the Department of Transportation anyway. So perhaps we could instruct staff to get some information on that, and we could present it to you at a future meeting.
yeah, generally I know with parades, that kind of thing, RCMP is a contact for traffic control type of thing, and then we do need to file a permit with TIR to have that done. So we could make an addition then, and a motion to ask staff to research that information. If you'd like to do that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd like to put a motion forward for staff to research the possibility of closing down some of these roads during Remembrance Day ceremonies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Could I have a seconder on that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so the motion is to ask staff to research with TIR on closing down roads for Remembrance Day ceremonies. Any further discussion? Question's been called, so all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, motion carried. I would agree. I mean, I attended Remembrance Day ceremonies in St. Peter's and River Bourgeois, and the traffic, certainly in St. Peter's was definitely, disruptive, in terms of being able to hear and being able to participate fully in the ceremony. And River Bourgeois, there was a bit of that as well, but less traffic. So I think overall, this is just an issue of respect for our veterans, and if there's something that we can do to reduce that kind of disruption when we're having these important ceremonies, I think that's the least that we can do. So I'll be looking forward to what staff brings back from TIR and to what Councillor Sampson finds out through Police Advisory Committee.
Now, some of you may remember that on a recent episode of Telile 24/7, I visited the grand aunt's property of Heather and Tony Sampson. That's because the Sampsons have a white spruce that was cut down on that day as Nova Scotia's official tree for Boston to thank the city for all the help it gave the province in the aftermath of the Halifax explosion. Well, that tree will be lit up in Boston on Thursday evening, and someone who will be taking a special interest in that ceremony is Rodger Cuzner. He was the former Member of Parliament for Cape Breton-Canso for 19 years, and he's just starting his new position as Canada's Consul-General to Boston. I spoke to Rodger Cuzner about this and several other issues as he's settling into his new post. Here's that interview right now. And very pleased to be joined today on Telile 24/7 by the new Consul-General for New England and the former MP for Cape Breton-Canso for the past 19 years. He is Rodger Cuzner. Rodger, thank you for joining us on Telile 24/7 today.
Great to have the opportunity to chat, Adam.
You applied for this position, I understand. Can you tell me a little bit about why you had the interest in serving in this particular spot?
Well, I guess to sort of even step back from that, having served as the Member of Parliament for Bredor, Cape Breton initially, and then Cape Breton-Canso, and most people realize that it's a pretty vast geographic area to cover. After 19 years, as much as I loved the opportunity to serve the people of the riding, I just found that the travel within the riding was it was tough. There's a lot of windshield time. You get home on a Friday evening, and your Saturday, Sundays were out in the community somewhere. And when you go from the River Ryan Bridge and just outside of Dominion, all the way up to the South River Road in Antigonish County, and down into Pomket and Tracadie, and over to Shettycamp. It's a big riding. So that sort of that part of the job became a bit tiring for me. So I knew that if you want to give it 100%, you need somebody that gets up every morning and just wants to get that job done and is looking forward to getting out and getting about. And I think we got a guy there now, Mike Kellaway, who's he's inspired by that and he's working hard at it. But I guess I was just getting too soft. But I knew that I still wanted to work and I wanted to be engaged. And so I went to the private sector. And I've been working the last year with Rubicon Strategies out of Toronto and Ottawa, and they do some lobbying. They do some strategic planning with a number of organizations and with a lot of in the corporate sector. That's been a great experience and a great bunch to work with. But I knew that this opportunity was coming up in Boston. Before I had left Ottawa, really, last October, November, I had met with the person in charge of appointments for the Prime Minister's office and had indicated my interest. Time went by. COVID hit, and the government's whole focus was on COVID, which it absolutely should have been, and I understood that. So I really hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to it. I got a call in around about September asking if I was still interested, and so I went through there was a process that you went through that was fairly rigorous, 3 levels of interviews, and went through that, and then about a month ago I got a call from the Prime Minister, and he gave me the news that he had made a decision, that he had asked if I'd serve in the post as Consul-General for Canada in Boston, and so I guess we're ready to roll. I on board. I've been going through the onboarding process now the last 3 weeks. My actual start date is this coming Monday, but we won't go to to Lynn. My wife Lynn will come with me, and we'll go to Boston the first week in January. So we relocate to Boston and get on with the job there. But I'll be doing it virtually for the first month.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about how you feel about the position to begin with, the concept of Canada having someone there to represent Canada's interests in Boston and in New England. What attracted you to that specific post, and how do you feel about taking it on?
It's probably one of the most important relationships our federal government, we have as Canadians is with our neighbor to the south. We have our ambassador to the United States works out of Washington, but beyond that, there are 9 consular offices, and they have them in Seattle and San Diego, Chicago, San Francisco, and then of course Boston. There's always been a great relationship between the Atlantic provinces and the New England states. Obviously, New Brunswick and Maine have a very special relationship, but, I know myself, my father-in-law, Cliff Hopkins, ran H. Hopkins Limited, the fish plant for, he was a second-generation operator, and probably 60% of their business was selling into Boston. The relationship has always been there. I recall just a couple of years ago, my youngest guy, Brad, was playing hockey with Santa Vex, and so they had a couple of exhibition games down in Boston, playing Boston College and University of Connecticut. So Lynn and I, it was a long weekend in October. We went down to catch a couple of the games, and so returning to the hotel on the Sunday night, and I couldn't find the street. I was getting frustrated. I ran a yellow light. So next thing, the red lights are on behind me. We get pulled over. The officer comes to the window. He said, "I want your license, your registration, your insurance." I said, "Well, my bag is in the back." And I gestured to open the door first. And anybody that's been stopped by the police in the States, these guys don't mess around.
No, I imagine.
He had the hand on the gun and say, no, stay in the car. He said, "Is it a state license?" I said, no, I'm from Canada. "What part of Canada?" I said, "Nova Scotia." "What part of Nova Scotia?" "Cape Breton." "What part of Cape Breton?" I said, "I'm from Glace Bay." He said, "Really?" He said, "My father's from Shannicamp."
Oh, my goodness.
Shannicamp. I said, that's fabulous. I said, "I'm a member of Parliament, and my riding takes in Shannicamp." He said, "My uncle's Bruno. He owns Mr. Chicken in Shannicamp." I said, "Geez, that's So it was great. We chatted, and he knew. He would come up and visit family every couple of years or so. So he still knew a lot of people in the Shannicamp area. We had a chat. I'm sure the neighbors there must have thought that they had just busted El Chapo or some major crime figure. We were tied up for about a half hour. Then we got a police escort to the hotel. So, but just to sort of indicate that the roots run deep.
Yes.
From throughout Atlantic Canada, but in particular, we had so many years in Cape Breton when you struggle with work and people trying to find work and start their lives on that. If there wasn't a multitude of opportunity in their own communities, they looked elsewhere. And for years, the New England states, the Boston states were a destination. Another period of time, it was Toronto. I know myself, in the 70s, late 70s, I went to Fort McMurray, Alberta, and I spent 10 years in the West. So those contacts remain. Those contacts. They have a Canadian women's club that's still very active in the Boston area, and I know that the current Consul-General, David Alward, who's been very helpful with the transition, he said that they're very active and they try to meet on occasion with the group from, and a lot of them are Nova Scotians, a lot from that group. So the ties run deep. The Irvings do a great deal of business in the New England area, Cook aquaculture, but our own I'm sure Premium Seafood has a big, a number of big accounts. throughout the states, and so the trade will be one of the major issues that'll be dealt with through the office.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about a very special connection that you were a part of not too long ago. Obviously, the tradition of the Christmas tree for Boston, sent to Nova Scotia every year to thank the people of Boston for the city's help in terms of rebuilding Halifax after the Halifax explosion in 1917. And you got to be on hand even before officially taking control as a Consul-General to New England. You got to be on hand at the Sampson property in Grand Anse as Tony and Heather's tree was cut down and the ceremonies were held to send it off to Boston. What was it like for you knowing that you were taking over this post over the next couple of weeks, but also to be able to see the tree come from right within Cape Breton and right within your former riding?
I thought that was so cool, and complete coincidence. When I got the call from Minister Derek Mumberket, Minister responsible for natural resources, and he had said the tree was coming from Cape Breton this year, and indeed, from the Sampson property. I just thought that was the coolest coincidence, and I very much look forward to getting up and witnessing that. I think it's a great gesture on the part of the province of Nova Scotia to keep that going, to just recognize the support that they gain from the people in Massachusetts and Boston in particular, and to recognize that by it's a great gesture, and the feel that was there that day. You were there, the media that were there, the elected officials, the students from the Strait campus, Waddy Long, and his class. He had a smile on from ear to ear. I thought they were going to have to take him for stitches. He was that excited about the whole event. But it's a small gesture, but an important gesture. And so it was even more special this year. I really wish I would have had the opportunity to be part of it. I know they do a fairly, it's a great networking opportunity when the tree arrives and they do the light up. I think it's December 5th they're doing the light up in Boston, and but unfortunately I won't be there until in January. So and with the COVID cases spiking in the Boston area, they're not in a dissimilar situation as what we see in Halifax right now. So they've closed down a lot of public access and public events. So I don't think it'll be as much of an event. But listen, there'll be another one next year, and it'll be even greater reason to get out and celebrate and be with people and pass on to the people of Boston their thanks on behalf of the Canadians and Nova Scotians.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing that next year, and of course looking forward to seeing the Sampson's tree, even seeing it virtually on television broadcasts this year.
And it's a beautiful tree, just full and healthy, and just I know they were honored to have that tree, and having had an opportunity to speak with them at the event, they were pretty excited, pretty proud.
Yeah, certainly. So you brought up COVID-19, Rodger, both the cases spiking in Boston and in Halifax right now, and we're all kind of looking nervously over our shoulders all across Nova Scotia right now. But I wanted to get your thoughts on how you feel the federal and provincial governments have done in terms of dealing with COVID-19. Your old boss, Justin Trudeau, of course, having to take the lead on this nationally, and we're seeing Stephen McNeil and Dr. Robert Strang, the Chief Medical Officer for Nova Scotia, taking this on locally. So just wanted to get your thoughts on how you feel they've handled the pandemic.
Well, here in Nova Scotia, although we're seeing these spikes now, and I'm proud of the people of Nova Scotia. I'm proud of the people in my own community here. I think by and large people are abiding by the public health regulations. People on the streets, you see them going with masks. Social distancing is something that I think everybody's, for the most part, everybody's respecting. The steps. None of them were fun, but they were necessary. And the shops that and I don't frequent a whole lot of shopping areas, but when you go in, they're paying particular attention to best practices. So I think that's been a positive. But when the cases start to escalate in Halifax, and you see the Nova Scotia Association restaurant owners, that association coming forward and saying, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. That's leadership. That's they know that's going to hurt their bottom line, but they see the merit in it. They see the importance of it, and they know that public safety. You're not going to cure the ills of the economy until we have a healthy population. So they came forward with it. I just watching the news last night. There was a poll that was put out there about the new regulations and the shutdowns that have occurred, and 47% said that they were great, and they respected them. 43% said they didn't go far enough. There was only 10% said that they were too harsh. So I think Nova Scotians, by and large, were pretty law-abiding people. If they're most people wear their seat belts because they know the science has proven that it saves lives. I think smoking has gone down in Nova Scotia year over year because they know the effects of smoking. And we play by the rules. If there's a sign that says stay off the grass, most Nova Scotians stay off the grass. But so I think that's why we've had success. And I'm hoping that these measures will be able to curb it. I don't think any particular you can't plan for something of this magnitude. Nationally, federally, I think that the Prime Minister has been clear and concise, knowing full well that health is provincial responsibility, and the provinces that's where they have to take the lead. But the federal government has come in and offered the support through the CERB and what have you. And he said right from the outset, he said, it's one of these issues where it's ready, fire, aim. They wanted to get money into the hands of Canadians. So you couldn't wait for that, to perfect a program. They came up with the CERB. They said, let's get this money out. People need it now. This will, sort of help get through the rough spot. So there are going to be people that may take advantage of it. They'll end up paying a price in the long run. But for the most part, it's gotten us over. The toughest part of it. Everybody was very much aware that there was going to be a second wave, and that's obviously what we're in the midst of now. We're fortunate that there are vaccines on the way, and that's been a great revelation in the last month. But it's Anthony Fauci, to quote Dr. Anthony Fauci, he says, the cavalry's on the way, and in terms of the vaccine, the cavalry's on the way. He said, but that doesn't mean you don't stop shooting. You keep on firing. He said until the cavalry comes, and then you keep firing then too, because the enemy is the virus, and the virus isn't going to let up. So. Anyway, I thought that was a great analogy, and it's up to each individual to assume that responsibility and to make sure that they're social distancing, wearing a mask, washing their hands, all those things. But again, when you get a local group like the association, the restaurant association, taking the lead and saying we're going to shut down here for 2 weeks in a hope to get this thing under control, I was really proud of them and proud to be a Nova Scotian.
You mentioned Dr. Anthony Fauci a moment ago, and I certainly don't want to put you in a difficult position as you're taking on your new task, but the timing is interesting in that it is a time of transition in the United States as well. There is a new president coming in and being sworn in January at the inauguration for Joe Biden, and we finally have word earlier this week that the administration of Donald Trump is willing to start transition talks with the Biden team. So just a general thought from you, if you could, answer the question any way you like. How does it feel for you to be taking on this role in New England as there is a page turning in American politics and in American leadership?
I think it's an exciting time. Some guys hunt and some guys fish and some guys play a lot of golf. I guess one of my pastimes is watching American politics, and it's a lot of Canadians have watched it over the last 4 years, and sometimes in bewilderment, and but this continued the current situation with the transition. I'm glad that it's finally underway, and I know that the states that the consular post serves 5 states. It's Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Rhode Island. And there are a number of the governor of Massachusetts is Charlie Baker. He's a Republican, very reasonable Republican. I know that I've been following how each of the states has been responding to the transition, and those Republican governors down there have really led the way. He said, "Listen, the pandemic goes far beyond party politics. Let's get on with the transition. Let's get this thing done, and let's try to save some American lives and get this economy back on its feet," sort of thing. So I think for the most part, the states that I'll be working with and the elected officials that I'll be working with, pretty reasonable, pretty responsible, and I think the sooner that the new administration gets an appreciation for where the country stands, and they're able to work with the various state governments to provide services and to help the people, I think that's better for everybody. So I'm glad to see the transitions taking place.
All right. We're heading into the home stretch of this interview, Rodger. I just had one more question for you, and that is one that I think puts a smile on faces every so often when we think about this, is that your tradition as a member of Parliament, as Christmas has come, is to do a rhyming wrap-up of the year in politics set to Clement Clark Moore's A Visit from St. Nicholas, or The Night Before Christmas. And I just wonder, for future Christmases, for your role as Consul-General to New England, might you be taking the rhyming dictionary back out as the tree lights up in Boston?
No, I think that's sort of that part. And I look forward to doing it. I did that for about 12 years. And it was good fun, and all the parties, you take a shot at your own party as well and your own leader, but I remember guys like Jim Flaherty and even former Prime Minister Harper got a few chuckles out of it, and it was interesting. Last year I got a call from Anthony Housefather. He was first elected in 2015, and he phoned me. He said, "Rodger, would you mind if I took a crack at the Christmas poem?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Anthony," I said, by all means. I never ever saw him as a guy, with much of a sense of humor. He's a pretty serious guy, but he said, "I'd really like to." I said, you know that you're Jewish, Anthony?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I think that'll add to it." So anyway, he did it last year. He did a rhyme last year, and he did a great job. So maybe he'll keep the tradition going. But I've retired my monosyllabic rhyme scheme, and we'll go on. I'll look forward to this will be a different Christmas for everybody, Adam, as we know. But it's more important that we have it'll be a Christmas with a few less people around the dinner table, but that we're safe next year and going forward. That's the most important thing. So and in that, I'm as we wrap up, I'm wishing you and your listening audience and all the best of the Christmas season, and have a safe and healthy New Year.
We appreciate that very much, Rodger, and we wish all the best to you and Lynn and the kids as well, too, and all the very best as you settle into your new post, first virtually, and then in the new year, a little more feet on the ground as Consul-General for New England. Congratulations, and thank you for giving us some time here today.
Thanks very much, Adam.
No trouble at all. Rodger Cuzner is the incoming Consul-General for Canada to New England. We've been speaking to him on the phone from Myra. Stay tuned for more Telile 24/7 in just a moment's time. And now a follow-up on the reinstatement of question period to Richmond Municipal Council's public meetings. We're going to hear from Richmond Warden Amanda Mumberket about her thoughts about the reinstatement of question period, and we'll also hear from a former warden who was the first person to take advantage of the new question period and to thank Council for returning it. Here are some of those thoughts right now.
I move the Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that the 15-minute question period agenda item be re-added to the Committee of the Whole meeting agendas moving forward, with the possibility of an extension to the allotted time as required.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to return question period to the agenda. Could I have a seconder on that?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie. So all those in favor? Or sorry, call for the question. That's right. All those in favor. Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carried. During the Committee of the Whole report, we heard about the addition of question period back to the agenda. So would entertain a motion at this time to add question period to the agenda for this current meeting, if there's someone who would like to do so.
I move that we add the question period to the back to the agenda.
Okay. Could I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, the question's been called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say we all ran on campaigns of openness and transparency and accountability, and those three things are three different things, but reinstating question period was really the first step to getting back towards more transparency around the council table. The citizens have every right to be able to ask questions of their councillors, and we're interested in making sure that right is enshrined in our council for sure. So it meant a lot to us to be able to get it done right off the bat. So our first regular council meeting, we had our question period. And that's, that was an accomplishment for us, and we hope it sends a message to our constituents that they can count on us to follow through on what we talked about during the campaign. That's exciting. So any questions from the public? Yes, please. It was a little intimidating to have a former warden in the room.
Not at all. The only reason I come before, by the way, Rich Cotton, District 3, the question period, I commend you for putting that back in the agenda. I think that's fantastic. I say that is because I know that the previous council, when they first get in, tried it, and I don't think that went that well because, you're asking questions about items that staff may not be prepared to answer. So I would suggest that if that wasn't the intention, that should be the intention, just to ask questions on items that are on the agenda.
We do max out at 7 members of the public, which is not ideal. But the way that the COVID-19 numbers are going right now in Nova Scotia, we really do have to err on the side of caution. We can't risk anybody, taking unnecessary chances with their health because of a question they want to ask at council. So what we have done since day one, we talked about it at Committee of the Whole, don't wait until question period. If you have a question of any of us, get in touch. Let us know what's on your mind, and if it's something we think we need to bring to council on your behalf, then we'll do that. If it's something we can just answer in the course of regular communications, we'll do that as well. We are encouraging people, though, if they want to come, to come early, or maybe even let a councillor know or someone on staff, so that we can make sure that there's enough room. We don't want to see anybody driving a long way and not be able to come in. But these are the realities that we're living with right now, for sure.
And in our last From the Scrum segment of this episode, we're going to hear once again from Richmond County Warden Amanda Mumberket about her council's recent decision to reallocate funds that are given out every Christmas to the food banks serving Richmond County residents. We'll hear from Warden Mumberket in just a moment, but first, here is some of the official discussion that went into the vote at the recent regular council meeting of Richmond County to make sure that all the food banks around the county would have funds distributed equally.
The committee discussed food banks. I move that council accept the recommendation of the committee of the whole and that the $10,000 allocated in the budget for food banks be dispersed as follows. District 1 to number 4, $1,750 each. District number 5, $3,000.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor regarding the food bank funding. Could I have a seconder?
I second.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Well, I mean, the reality is that we do have a new food bank that's open to, with a new building in Bud-Ledeck, which means that there's no longer 5 food banks in 5 districts. There are 6 food banks in 5 districts. And so how do we make sure that we're treating people as fairly as we can? Ideally, we'd like to be able to give everyone the same amount of money, but the budget just wasn't there to support it this year. So we'll take that into account in next year's budget and look at how we can be more equitable in that way. I'd like to work more closely with our food banks to understand the pressures that they're facing, period, to see what else we could be doing. But I think it was kind of a natural reaction for this council, this group of people, to be able to come up with a solution that would be the least punitive to anyone in particular and the most helpful to everyone. So that's kind of the direction that they took. I was actually really proud to see that coming from the discussion at the Committee of the Whole. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but it was really, frankly, heartwarming to see how they proceeded, and it was a great decision. The size of the food bank, I think, is an important consideration going forward. The reality is that we're in the middle of a pandemic. All of these food banks are going to be under more strain now than ever before. So I think it really was in the best interest of the public, and it was the least that we could do as a council to figure out a more equitable solution there.
Warden Mumbercat also had some thoughts about the new food bank building in Bud-Ledeck First Nation. She attended the official opening for this facility on November the 4th.
They've had a food bank kind of program for some time, but the fact that they have a building now is a huge accomplishment for that community. I know Band Councillor Anita Bask was instrumental in getting that up and going, and I commend her and the whole team. I think Tahira Paul was involved. To commend them for being able to bring that to fruition, especially during a time when things are so tough and it's very difficult to get projects off the ground right now. So it's amazing that they were able to get that done. And I guess from our my perspective, having attended that opening, I think we need to be doing more things like that, collaborating together with our local governments within the county and neighboring areas to make the most of our investment and to make sure that constituents are benefiting as much as they possibly can from the work of the council here.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you very much for tuning in, and a special thanks to my guest this week, Rodger Cuzner, and a big thank you to my Telile colleagues, Becky Boroneau, Cora LeBlanc, and Nick Boudreau, for their assistance with the footage from the recent meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. And a big thank you to all those who follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We've always got new content going up on those social media pages, and we've got new content going up on our YouTube pages almost daily. We've got all kinds of interviews and stories from every single episode of Telile 24/7. You can watch entire episodes on our YouTube channel, and there's a lot of new material dealing with everything from music to arts to literature to various things about life in our region that my Telile colleagues have been working hard on and posting on our YouTube page, including some brand new Christmas features, so make sure you check those out. And did you know that Telile 24/7 now has a podcast? We've launched the Telile 24/7 podcast this week. You can listen to it on soundcloud.com/Telile, and you can enjoy interviews, stories, and other little surprises from the world of Telile 24/7. We look forward to seeing you with our very next edition of the show on video. Check us out on any kind of social media that you like. And you can always get in touch with us with your ideas for stories and interviews. Just give me a call at 902-625-8863. My email is adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. And you can connect with Telile directly. The station number is 902-226-1928. And you can email them at the address info@telile.tv. I'm Adam Cooke. Thank you once again for joining in. I look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new edition of Telile 24/7. Talk to you then.